Afternoon, everyone. We'll be starting with the session today. See, basically, today's session is targeted towards two things. One is that we're learning on how to solve questions in an RC, but also because all of us are reading a lot of articles, preparing for our GK sessions and preparing for our GK knowledge. We're reading newspapers, editorials of various newspapers. So, how can we maximize our reading by doing preparation for GK, as well as also helping us how to analyze an editorial section, not only for the purpose of GK, but for the purpose that we are able to read the editorial section as per the requirement of RCs. So for teaching you that purpose, initially I'll give you an RC and we learn the process of reading. Then we'll open an editorial and we're going to ape the process what we did with an RC, and we are going to ape it by doing it in an editorial. Then all of you will practically through this session are going to learn how to analyze lines and how to read the editorial properly so that we are able to absorb the maximum information from the editorial. So here, I'll be just doing an article share with all of you. So just give me 1 minute. I'll be sharing an article with all of you so that you have that this, and I'll be sharing the link of the article also so that you have an access to the article. Just 1 minute. So here's your article. I think all of us can look at the article. I'm sharing the article with you, and here's the article. Are you all able to see the article now? I think it's visible on the computer screen. So I've increased the font size also. But before we start reading the article, I can easily ask all of you to scan. The first step in reading comprehension will always be where we are able to scan the question. So I'm giving you a glance. I'm letting you all have a glance of what type of questions follow these articles. So here, I'm passing these questions to you. Please, all of us look at the question number. All of us have a look at the question number 3. Can we just do a look at the question number 3? It clearly says it can be inferred from the passage that early historians of women labor in the United States. If you can, I'm only targeting today inference questions so that when we are reading articles, we are able to look at the different kind of interpretations or different kind of understandings that we need to make out from the crucial part of the article. So please, all of us, can we look at question 3? I repeat again, it can be inferred. So clearly it says it can be inferred. The moment we look at the word inferred, first thing that comes to my mind is that probably I will not have the answer directly being given to me in the paragraph, but I have to discern the meaning. So I have to really take out the meaning of the paragraph, take out from specific areas, meaning of the paragraph has to be understood rather than to be stated. So here the question is inferred, and what can be about early historian of women labor in United States paid little attention to women's employment. So here we have to understand from this part. We'll make out, first we look at the question. Let's say there are just 3-4 questions that I'm teaching you today. So let's see what are the various type of questions. So first question that I'm handling is an info question. Then the next question, what we can do is here, can be the next one here, which is the passage supports which of the following statements about early mill owners. So that means which is true according to early mill, supports which of the following statements. It's practically a question of either a author's agreement, or it can also be must be true as per the passage. Again, a kind of question which is very, very close to your inference question. So question says the passage supports which of the following statements about early mill owners. mentioned in the second paragraph. So my second paragraph becomes an absolutely important part, because I have to go and discern from the second paragraph. I have to interpret the second paragraph. Okay. Then another question of an inference starts here. So the question is again an inference question. Unfinished revolution, the author mentions, and let's ignore line 14. So unfinished revolution that the author mentions in line 14, what does that mean? So we have a question from the second paragraph. We have a question from one of the lines which has the word, which has this unfinished revolution. Now I'm moving my question to question number 8. Look at question number 8. Which of the following best describes the relation of the final paragraph to the passage as a whole? So that means now this question is basically like a bold-faced question. Can you see? I'm only teaching you today inference questions and your bold-faced questions. Just give me 1 minute. I need to see, because I really need to see the live chats that people are writing to me. Okay. Okay. So here, if you can see, he clearly talks about, in this paragraph, he's talking about the relation. So my entire central idea has to be made so that I can know what role does the last paragraph play in the entire passage. What is the role of the final paragraph? Then second paragraph was my concern. Another word that came to my notice was unfinished revolution, and the first question. So first question, which was basically talking about this part. Historians of women's labor, early historians of women labor in United States paid little attention. So now I know areas where I really need to focus so that I can grasp the meaning. So can we go and look at our method of reading now? I'm providing you with the first paragraph. All of you read the first paragraph properly, and please give me the central idea. Let's say the paragraph is not 4 paragraphs. We're going to find out what is he conveying to us in the first paragraph. Let's go and look at that. Can we look at that? What is he talking about in the first paragraph? Can anybody point out to me what will be the gist of my first paragraph? Can any one of you give me the gist of the first paragraph? I need some replies here so that we are able to work out with. So anybody with the first paragraph, because I'm looking at the replies that I'm getting here from all of you, because if you can see the first paragraph, will you be able to tell me? Okay, so here I'm reading the first paragraph to teach you how to go through it, because I am not seeing a lot of people replying to what I'm asking. So I'm going myself only by explaining to you how to read. So when you're reading the first paragraph, and now we've scanned the questions, I have shown you how to scan the questions so that in my mind, my roadmap is clear as to what I have to do while reading the paragraph. While reading the paragraph, what should be my attention spans? That doesn't mean that I do not read the whole paragraph. It means that the points where the questions are asked, I specifically concentrate on those areas where I might go a little slower. I might put in my maximum attention span and increase my concentration, or try underlining the vital aspects that can lead to the answer of that question. Clear? Now, I'm demonstrating how this can be done while we are reading the paragraph. So I can easily demonstrate here. So look at it. He starts from the first line. I first discern the topic. What is the author's topic? So if you can see, historians of women labor, largely disregarded. If you can see here, I'm underlining some part so that I can demonstrate to you, show you that how we can work out the topic introduction. So they first largely disregarded the story of female workers, women earning wages in occupations. So he gives us examples. In sales clerks, domestic servants, secretaries, these historians focused. So at first, they largely disregarded these kind of works, but they focused instead on factory work, primarily because it seemed very different from the traditional unpaid woman's work in the home. Industrialism were presumed to be gender blind, and hence emancipatory in effect. Unfortunately, emancipation has been less profound than expected for not even industrial wage labor. So topic is there is sex segregation in the workplace. So historians have largely disregarded sales clerks, domestic servants, and secretaries' works. These historians focused on industrial, but then he clearly, author in the last paragraph says, unfortunately, emancipation did not even happen for them. There was continuous sex segregation in the workplace. So my topic is done. I now know my topic. I can now either see how does the author build on this, whether he gives us reasons, whether he gives us facts, is he giving me some examples, or he moves away and how he builds on the topic. So the first concept is when you read an editorial, try finding out the topic on which he is going to build the entire scope of his thought. So now my topic is this. I'm teaching you through this, then we'll open the editorial also in the next 10 minutes. To explain this now here, see, because I scanned the question, look at it, how this leads to me. Now I know I have to interpret this part. To explain this unfinished revolution in the status of women, historians have recently begun to emphasize the way a prevailing definition of feminine. So they tried explaining this by, I just check some people are writing messages, but I am unable to see your messages. I'm unable to see the messages. Just give me 1 minute. How do I look at your messages? Is my problem. I'm not able to see the messages. That's my problem. I don't know how students are. Where are you guys writing the message? Okay, so let's go further. I'm not able to access your messages. That's the biggest difficulty that I'm facing. So he says here, to explain this, historians have recently begun to emphasize the way a prevailing definition of femininity often determines the kind of work allocated to women. So there is a segregation at the work, sex segregation. If I'm a woman, I'm given a different work. If somebody is a male, he's given a different work. So he says a prevailing definition of femininity, the work allocated to women. Can you see how he's building? Even when an allocation is inappropriate to new conditions, for instance, now here, can you see author supports it with an example of early textile mill. He talks about this. He says there's a definition of femininity. He supports it with an example. Did you see? I worked out my introduction by finding the introduction. Then I saw how he supported this by giving us some kind of a definition and then he's suitably exemplifying it. Did you see how we're making a structure while reading? Now he says early textile mill entrepreneurs in justifying women's employment in wage labor. I'm just shifting this. Women's employment in wage labor made much of the assumption women were by nature skillful at detailed tasks and patient in carrying out repetitive chores. So that's the justification he gives. Who gives that? Early mill. They made this assumption that women by nature are very skillful, they're patient in a detailed task, patient in carrying out. So the repetitive chores, owners thus imported into the new industrial order, hoary stereotype associated with activities they presume to have been purview of women. So textile owners gave them that kind. Because women's acceptance of the unattractive new industrial task more readily than did men. Jobs came to be regarded as female jobs, and employers assumed that women's real aspiration for marriage and family life declined to pay women wages commensurate. Thus, many low-skilled, lower-paid, less secure jobs perceived as female. Can you see here? Segregation in women gives an example of textile owners that they gave them repetitive works. Gradually, what happened? They thought the main aspiration of women were married life, declined to pay wages. So many lower skilled, lower paid, less secure jobs. Look at the conclusion of this part of that example. One of my question on textile mill is done. Can I see this example? This whole paragraph does what? Supports the segregation, supports at the segregation in workplace, because I have a question where I have to answer the relationship between the first and the last paragraph. Can you see that? So I have to answer that question. So probably I will have to really be very cautious as to how I am building on my thought process. Clear? I'm teaching you gradually. First you learn the technique. I might take a lot of time to explain you. But what happens is once we learn the technique, then gradually we start mastering it with speed also by reading, because we're reading newspapers to amalgamate information. Now, more remarkable than the original has been the persistence of such sex segregation in 20. See, earlier, what was he talking about in old times? Can we see that? Can we look at this? So he did not tell us what time it was, but he really talks about it, that there's disregard of the story of, if you can see here, the story of female workers, women earning wage of sales clerk. He clearly talks about at some point there is segregation. Now he says, he brings us to the sex segregation in 20th century industry. Once an occupation came to be perceived as female, employers showed surprisingly little interest. Can you see that? What is he? He's giving so much of support, little interest in changing that perception, even when higher profits beckoned. So they showed less interest. And despite the urgent need of the United States during the Second World War to mobilize its human resources fully, now look at it, 20th century, last paragraph, he gives you the example of Second World War. He gives another example, suitable example of the Second World War to prove how to mobilize its human resource fully. Job segregation by sex characterized even the most important war industries. Moreover, once the war ended, employees quickly returned to men. Most of the male jobs and women have been permitted to master. So during the World War, because men had to go and fight, so they gave those jobs to women. And now see what is the, once they came back from war, then probably all the jobs women had been given and they had mastered, permitted to master, were given back to men. So can you see what role? Can we do the last question first so that we're clear what is the idea? I'm opening my last question, the relationship question, so that all of you become absolutely comfortable with how we can do these questions. So here's the question and the solution. I'm giving you a 30 seconds so that all of you can just look at the option choices to Find out the right answer. Find out the right answer for your question number 8. So can you see how I read? I read the introduction topic. We thought author gives an example of textile owners, and look what he does. He brings us to the 20th century and supports it with an example of the Second World War. So now let's look at how we are going to go with this this option choice. We can easily all of us can look at how we can really eliminate certain choices. So for sure, what is the central idea? The central idea is that there was and there is sex segregation. Author uses the example that in the World War II, in the 20th century also, there was this sex segregation in the World War II, which is not the main idea. It is a point that supports his primary idea of sex segregation. Now, 3 of the option choices is saying it is reinforced. Yes, it is. It is restated and it is restated. So if you're confused in this, let's keep all this a partial expression. No, D is wrong because it is not a partial. If you can see, it's a partial exception. There is no exception cited. Recent history is cited. No, recent history is not cited. It is the World War that is cited. So 2 of these options do not make. I'm going to keep all these 3, which make sense to me because the central idea is reinforced. Now, 2 of them say it's restated, but now I'm confused. Let's say if I'm confused, then let me go and read the one which says restated in such a way as to form a transition to a new topic. No, there is no transition to a new topic. So here it is lost. And the central idea is restated and juxtaposed with evidence that might appear to, no, it does not contradict it. And see here, it is support. It is reinforced by the citation of evidence drawn from 20th century history. See how well we work with it. Answer to the 8th is A. Answer to the 8th is A. All of you, I hope, are convinced with what I'm doing and how I am going with it. Yes, I hope it's okay. Anybody, if somebody can write and give me a clue as to how can I access what you're writing to me? Because I can't see any of your... So now, we are doing one more question, and that is our question number 8 is okay for everybody. Now we're doing the example on the question number 2, which was saying it referred this part, early mill owners. The passage supports which of the following statements about early mill owners mentioned in the second paragraph? And you know now what role the early mill owners did. What did we underline? That they also thought, if you can just remember what you read from the second paragraph, that women were by nature skilled, so they started giving them what kind of work? Repetitive work. Thus, many lower skilled, lower paid, and less secure jobs came to be perceived as female. Can we keep these? The example, the premise of that example is repetitive chores. Conclusion is lower skilled, lower paid, less secure jobs. Let's keep this in mind and read. Did you see what I did? I treated it more like a critical reasoning question by finding out the premise of the example and the conclusion of the example. Now, can we just look at this by talking about how Okay, focus on factory work as a mere promising area of research, then service sector. No, not this. Can you see this version? Early men is mentioned in the second paragraph. So we are reading this. They hope that by creating relatively unattractive female jobs, they would discourage women from losing interest. Was this what the author said? This is not even, see, whenever you're doing an inference question, please, whenever you're doing an inference question, see to this, you are not going beyond the scope of the paragraph. You will not go beyond the scope. You will not make any kind of a judgment remark or an extreme comment. Do not go by lines that are first. Do not go by something that has been stated. That means you go and find out something that's stated. You have to throw it out because it has to be interpreted. Second thing, do not go by extremity and judgment. I hope all of you understand a judgment or an extremity is something where the author goes into either comparing, using very harsh words, or using extreme words like all the government policies are misguided. Look at this line. Shah Rukh Khan is better than Rajnikant. Poverty can never be eliminated. In our country, corruption has no cure. So look at these strong lines, extreme lines that we are saying. Scope should not change. When I say the scope, this is scope change. See, we never said creating relatively unattractive jobs. We never had this part in the scope of unattractive. So this is gone. Stated should not be there. We have to understand from the what does author mean there. So if you can see here, they sought to increase the size of the, no, this is again absolutely irrelevant to the question. They argued that women were inherently suited to do well in a particular kinds of factory work. Yes, they thought that. Yes, they thought, because they thought they were skilled, naturally skilled to do repetitive work. I am keeping my third option, but let's see whether D and E can make a better sense out of this. So I am keeping my C option, and let's see whether I can have. So they argued that women were inherently, they thought that factory work bettered the condition of women. No, they never thought that, because see here, bettered the condition because they were low paid, they were less secure from dependence on income from men. There is no correlation like this cited, so this can go. They felt guilty. The tone is nowhere guilt, because so D and E are eliminated. So now my answer turns out to be C. My answer is C to the fourth one. Now let's do question number 5, which is unfinished revolution. The unfinished, see, now once I've read the paragraph and framed in my mind for an inference question my structure, then it is so easy. I don't have to go back and keep reading. I'm really avoiding the regression. Are you understanding my technique? My technique would always be fostering on one thing, which is it says first decipher the topic, then see how he develops the topic. Usually authors, after giving the topic, will try building on the topic, either by examples, either by countering, bringing in new subtopics here. But here, let's look at it. Unfinished revolution. So if you can see here, entry of women into industrial, that does not explain the unfinished revolution. Recognition that work done by women as homemakers should be compensated at rates not discussed. Rates were not even discussed. Development of a new definition of femininity unrelated to economic forces. A new definition, short, but unrelated to economic forces, was not even given. It was not even discussed here. Is it clear? So unfinished revolution did not talk about any kind of. So please look at it to explain the unfinished revolution. What did this do it here? What did they say? So the only definition of femininity they refer to in the passage is try to determine the kind of jobs. Can you see this part? This will always be there in your questions of inference. which I'm listing as distort. Now you will say, what is distort? You know what, to understand it in simple terms, what will they do? They'll take up some words from the line. We all know this part has been discussed. And they will add some word from their own end, unstated ones, or they will take it from some another part, create an option which will absolutely change the meaning. I repeat again, a meaning difference will occur. Now see here, I'm going to show you how this option has been created. See, clearly he talked about this unfinished revolution in the status of women, began to emphasize the way prevailing definition of femininity often determines the kind of work allocated to the kind of work, not now. Look what he says. New definition of femininity unrelated to economic forces was not even there. So can you see how it changes the meaning? So C is gone. Introduction of equal pay and equal work in all professions, that kind of unfinished revolution was never there. Emancipation of women wage earners from gender determined job allocation was to explain this unfinished revolution, was the answer. Can be interpreted. Because the unfinished part was that the segregation was still there, refers to an emancipation that is incomplete, refers to the liberation of the woman that is incomplete, emancipation of women wage workers, that means which was unfinished, no? It is still prevailing. So emancipation of earners from gender determined job allocation is the unfinished part, because it is an incomplete job. It is still there. Okay, let's do one more question and then we move to the editorial part. We've done this, so can we do one more easy? Can you see I've given you all kind of exposure? We did a bold critical reasoning support, we did 2 inference questions, and now what we're doing, we can do one easy question which is according to the paragraph. These are going to be our 5 questions usually there in our passages. 1 critical reasoning, 1 maybe according to the passage, 2, 3 which are asking us to interpret from within the paragraph, and 1 either the main idea or a boldface asking you a relation between the 2 paragraphs. Clear? So probably this gives you an exposure to all kinds of questions. But today my intention is to help you structure the paragraphs according to the need of the questions and probably interpret by not by going by the verbatim, what is stated in the passage, trying to understand the meaning that he conveys through those lines. So that will help us master our questions of inference. So can we look at this? According to the passage, job segregation by sex was. So United States was. Can we say here was greatly diminished by labor mobilization? It did not diminish, rather reverse. Men came back and women had to give back their jobs. So A is wrong. If you can see, false as per the paragraph. 1 means by which women achieve greater job. No, he clearly says there was less secure jobs. Can you see again, false? I've left the B Bombay. We'll come to that also. First, I'm going and eliminating easy choices. Perpetuated by those textile mill owners who argued in favor of women employment in wage labor. For sure, if you can see here, for sure, answer should be B Bombay. Why? Now, if you can see here, B Bombay, why? Because textile mill owners exploited stereotypes. Clear? They exploited stereotypes. They thought women were routine, they could do repetitive work. So job segregation perpetuated by textile mill owners. Yes, it was. They gave them those repetitive jobs who argued in favor of women employment in wage labor. That was surely job segregation was demonstrated much by them. It was not done for greater job security. That's not there. अब ये देखो, a constant source, look at the England, the worst choice. A constant source of labor unrest. Labor unrest is not a part of our paragraph. So if you can see labor unrest, not a part. This goes out of the box. Greatly diminished, false. False. not discussed. Now the fight is between B and D. Job segregation by sex in United States was reluctantly challenged by employers, except when the economic advantages. But where are the economic advantages? By rather they said it was less secure. They showed little interest in challenging job segregation, little interest. It was disregard, little interest. Even when higher profits, see, did we not read this line? Can we look more remarkable than original? Such segregation, can you see, even if there was more profits, yet they did not. They did not. Employers showed surprisingly little interest in changing that perception, even when higher profits beckoned. So eliminates my D also. Reluctantly challenged, except when economic advantages were obvious. No, they didn't even chat. That time also they did not. So answer becomes B, Bombay. I hope my 5 more minutes I'll spend by going to the blackboard and teaching you, and then we open our editorial, what we are here for. See, whenever we're doing, now I'm doing it in a little pictorial form to explain you. See, this is my editorial in a newspaper. So how would I read it? First thing is I put myself into 2 question zones. I have to always make out the central idea. When I'm reading the editorial, this should be in my mind that I make the central idea. Sometimes I challenge myself by saying, let me give a new title. What the author has given, let me not go by that. Let me change the title and give a brighter title than this. A central idea or a title. Another thing that I can challenge myself, now if the editorial is split into various small paragraphs, I try summarizing each summary of each paragraph. I try doing, and I'll challenge myself by making a summary by finding out the conclusions of each paragraph. This is the task that I will do. Conclusion of each and every paragraph. Let's say these are 4. So I'll work out conclusions of all the 4. I'll work out conclusions of all the 4 paragraphs. Now what will happen? Once I do the conclusions of all the 4 paragraphs, then gradually while reading, see, this is your home practice. We're not doing a mock. You are just learning the right method to making a thought flow of the editorial so that you're able. Now I have 4 important points of all the paragraphs. My summary practically is ready. My summary is ready. Now what I need to do further, this is my basic prima facie. This is how I don't read editorial loosely. Don't just think that you are critically read the editorial by analyzing the main highlights of the editorial. So what I do is I ask myself, can I, after reading the editorial, let's say you plan to read the editorial of a Hindu in 4 or 5 minutes, or maybe depending on the word size, if it's 600, you're reading it in 4 or 5 minutes. But if it's a smaller one, you're reading it in a lesser time. So let's say you read in 4 minutes and then question yourself, are you ready to give a central idea? Do you really know each paragraph summary? Ask yourself those questions. Did you see the author in the paragraph? Could you spot out what kind of tone is he writing the paragraph? So these are general questions while you're reading the editorial should really be handled properly, because this is overall understanding of the editorial. Now, this is first few questions. You can ask yourself first question, central idea. Either sometimes ask yourself, what's the title? Very many times, this is always to be followed. Work out the conclusions of all 4, 5, as many paragraphs as the editorial has. I'm not saying 4 as the final count. It can have 3, it can have 5 also. So you'll have to make conclusions or highlights of each and every single paragraph, which is there in one editorial. So let's say my editorial was 500 words split into 5 paragraphs. So practically I am making conclusions of all the 5. And here my summary will be ready. So that means now I'm basically using my skim technique to work out the summary portion. Skim would mean highlight of that paragraph. Then next part is very, very challenging and very exciting. Once you worked out conclusions of all paragraphs, like I showed you with the paragraph just 10 minutes ago, you find out how are they linked. Are they linked by reason or are they linked by fact? Is the author building on his prima facie introductory thought? How does he build on the introduction? Is he giving more reasons to me? Is he adding on facts? Is he exemplifying? Or he is just giving more description to the topic? These are some tools to now decipher how are they linked? Are they linked by, is he the author after giving something, is giving some justifications by giving some reasons? Or he's giving some counterpoints, counter reasons. No, he's not doing that. He's giving us facts. He's giving all facts in support. He's giving examples like the previous one. He's giving us examples of the textile mill owners. He's giving us examples of the World War to exemplify the thought that he introduced. No, he does not give me examples. He's just describing plain words. So this could be how I'm reading initially to make my reading more effective. What you're learning through this session is three things. One, I'm teaching you how to make your reading more effective. Second thing I'm teaching you is how to make your thought flow process clear so that absorption is maximized. Because here, when you work out the conclusions, now be very sure when you're working out these conclusions of each paragraph, do not go and find out 20, 30 words. Just make the conclusion as sharp and as brief as constituting almost 8 to 10 words, not more than that. Not more than that. So now, here's the process. When you work out the conclusion from the paragraphs, from each paragraph, see to it that you have taken not many nouns, but the thought. Do not be focused only on the nouns. A lot of people have this tendency to underline nouns. Please go to the verb or the main thought. And if there is a word which is taking into being his, he says unfortunately, he says surprisingly, he says author doubts. So did you in your first reading focus on, these are some focus points that I'm generating while you're reading editorials. Did you focus on certain tone words? Author says regrettably. Author says people are skeptical. So these words are bringing out his opinion in the form of tone. The scheme is questionable. Did you focus in your one reading on certain words that are talking about his tone? So here, first process, I make a point system here. First thing, I scan. In RCs, you will scan, but in editorials, what will you do? You will find the topic. First thing, you will find the topic. Second thing, make a summary of each para. Summary of each para has to be done. What we'll now do, I'll do it practically. A third, we'll find out the connectivity between the two subsequent paragraphs. Fourth, find out whether you can make out now the central idea of the paragraph. 5, would you be able to give a new title? Did you in your reading spot somewhere any focus where he's talking about his own personal tone, his opinion on the particular topic? These are your 6 pointers that you will always remember when you will do your editorial reading. And all the summary that you make in about a 60 to 70 words is the gist of the paragraph, which is a wow way to retain the knowledge of that paragraph. Might not be very useful for your GK purpose because facts won't come, but you will become acquainted, you will become well-versed with the topic. I'm quickly opening my second paragraph so that you are able to do that also. Okay, so here's an editorial from an Indian Express, and I am just giving you, I'll just again. So here, this is my editorial from the Indian Express, maybe August 20. I think the date might be August 20 or 21, that's there. Look at the topic now. We just did one topic on segregation, sex segregation, work and allotment due to, now look here. Look at the editorial. Look at the heading that the editorial gives us. He's saying Chalan on caste. Now my questions remain the same, please. All of you, my questions will remain the same. My questions are whether it is, give me a central idea. How are the paragraphs interconnected? What can be a new title that we can give? Okay, so this is how we're reading the editorial. Quickly, let's see what does the topic say. The topic given by the editor of this column was Chalan on car stickers in UP. It's not just SUVs, North Indian city suffers from its own apartheid. So we'll have to give a better title. Let's start reading. Okay. So clearly saying those who look on the sentiment underlining the stickers must realize our elite workplaces and gated colonies serve the same purpose of the same purpose hierarchy. In fact, the car stickers might be the most honest of the lot. Now, look at what he says now. Look at it. Let's start reading. Let's read. He's just given us a file photo. When I'm reading this, can you see when I'm reading all this, what should I be reading in my mind? When I'm reading this, tell me what should I be reading? Mm-hmm. Okay. So can you see it's just given us some examples. What are these? What are written on stickers? Can you see the topic was car stickers in UP? Car stickers. Now see the examples: dangerous Gujar, Brahman, dad's gift. Okay, chalo. So here are some examples, but let's read from here. The topic begins from here. There are few images. There are few images. Again, he gives us some examples. Bangla bangers, chattering Chatterjees, many mondals in Kochi, nefarious Nayars. कुछ भी नहीं है, he's just adding on examples. Can you see author इसमें instead of giving you the topic, the author starts by giving you examples. But look where the topic comes now. The topic comes here when author starts by saying, but in North India, stickers showcasing caste and community pride are displayed with aplomb. ये रहा मेरा topic. Author starting में सिर्फ एक background use करता है to he uses this as a background to build on the North Indian stickers, which are talking about caste and community pride. Is it clear? I am moving further. Now read this. Nothing. Reportedly on instructions from Chief Minister Yogi, they are conducting out this 10-day drive. Yogi issued challans against vehicles with caste and religious stickers. This is not the first such attempt. Similar. Look at now, I need you to know the crackdowns on stickers don't stick. What does this mean? Clearly, the crackdown on stickers don't stick. Now, such a question, what can be interpreted? Don't stick. Because the word is sticker. So that's why he says don't stick. That means what? This will not, the crackdowns will not work. It does not work on stickers don't stick. Because he is trying to issue challans against vehicles. And it won't work. That's what he says, because it's the word, he is literally using this word stick to the matter of because these are sticker challans. Up padho. Now read. So can you see again the author tries reinforcing the thought, the upper class who are largely upper caste, denizens of Delhi. He says they use this. stickers. It's easy to dismiss this declaration of community pride as not so subtle warnings, even threats. Can you see this? The conclusion, nothing here. So clearly saying the crackdowns on stickers won't stick. Second thought, second conclusion that we work out. Look at first topic we worked out that there are these challans, but these challans are not going to stick. Crackdown on stickers don't stick. Second paragraph, he says the upper class. Okay. Have long chuckled at the clever, if blunt phrasing. But now these are examples. These are examples which clearly says, which reminds others on the road that Jat to abound, especially in parts of, can have a similar effect. So now he says it's easy to dismiss these declaration of community prize as not so subtle warnings, even threats. Here's my conclusion to the next paragraph. Or simply joke at their expense, but that would be ignoring a large question. So what is the author trying to say? This is a symptom of a serious disease. He's calling this as a disease, a symptom of a much more serious disease. You're doing a challan for people who are putting these stickers, but what is the disease? You're showing your upper class caste. You are promoting casteism. Can you see the interpretation he's leading us to? So can we go further now? Just quickly, we can go. By definition, cities constitute the members, but as you jostle through the crowd at Rajiv Chowk station, stand in McDonald's, KFC, he gives us examples. It is impossible to know the caste background of those who share space, eat with us, or stand next to us at the urinal. Especially when we are constantly told the fruits of post-liberalization, capitalism, and New India's efficient are ripening should mean less segregation. This is also on segregation. Now, this is segregation on, basically, I'm teaching you apartheid. Now, apartheid basis caste. That was apartheid basis gender. Should mean less segregation, less obsession with hierarchy, ascribed as is an ideal world, perhaps. So author is clearly saying when you put those stickers, you put a challan on them, you are not treating the disease, but you are just treating a symptom. Can you see the central idea? We need to work on a larger note, because when we are standing in a post-liberalized economy, McDonald's, KFC, we have nothing as cars there. But when it is a car, you put a sticker, but North Indian city is long way from the ideal. And while it is urban in terms of population, it is far from the urban. Urban means it's still not moved up the caste. Gated residential high-rises, see-through glass office buildings, share their walls and fences with still rural areas and illegal colonies with the productive class live there. The colonies where so many white-collar workers, business entrepreneurs are both colonial and feudal. Can you see this author's conclusion? They are both colonial and feudal. Apartheid, that is segregation in a glitzy cover. This writer knows of at least 5 examples where maids are not allowed to spend time in community spaces with separate lifts for the productive working class as a matter of course, and the less said have caste diversity. Look at how he highlights. Last paragraph. Can you see how he's building? Author starts by topic, then he says it does not work, supports it by example, by saying should mean less segregation, less obsession, but no, that's only possible. In NCR, it is not an ideal world. Then he talks about further segregation by giving you examples of the high-gated, high-rise buildings. These class and caste boundaries are policed with so much force. If far more subtly, an attack on the Dalit groom. Clear? Can you see another example to prove his point of a Dalit groom, where if he plans to ride a horse? Yet at the same time, the city remains, if only by virtue of its sheer scale, a challenge to entrenched privilege, identity, and equality. Can you see the central idea? The true elite whose capital is not merely financial, but also cultural and social, do not need to mark their identity on the street. If I'm an elite, I don't need to mark my identity on my car or on the street. They do not overtly talk about caste. They pretend it does not pretend. Look at the tone. Author is calling them pretentious. They don't talk. This it does not exist. But when on the car, they'll put sticker, Brahman, or they will say dangerous Gujar. Have you seen all this? Last point here, last one. So we can look here. The sticker on the car ensures that the identity that is linked with power, with perhaps insecurity, continues to be on display in a setting where it may not hold the same sway. Now look at the final conclusion. It is expressed by claiming a parochial identity on a card that costs more than most Indians' annual salary and is made either in Japan or Germany. Parochial identity. That means a sticker then is subtle threat that hints at overt masculine violence. The sentiment can be challaned away, and those who look down at it must realize that our colonies and offices, curated feeds and fashion sense often serve the same purpose. In fact, the car sticker might be the most honest of a lot. Can you see here? How is the paragraph now being built? Can you see? This is how I read one of the editorials for you. Introduction, author gives the topic. We are treating the innocuous symptom, not the disease. And author supports, builds on the topic by giving us example first of McDonald's, where we do not display our caste, but in North India, he says, it is so much prevalent that this is not an ideal world. It's a long way from ideal. Then he talks about gated residential high-rises in support of the segregation. And he talks about how maids of the lower caste, domestic workers, drivers, delivery persons, they are more often than not criminalized. Then he says the class boundaries are enforced with so much force. Then he gives you an example of the lower caste Dalit groom. Then he says these people are pretentious. They think caste does not exist, but it exists. It often people in communities in transition, in a situation where social capital makes them ripe to be played by a character actor or made in heaven. Then clearly, those who look down it must realize our colonies and offices, curated feeds and fashion often serve the same purpose. They are also serving. So he's clearly saying caste-based segregation is so much prevalent in North India. Inference is we are not targeting the disease of the caste segregation which exists in the urban North India. Rather, we are just putting a small fine by putting a challan on the stickers, which also author thinks will not work. Clear? This is how we are going to read our editorial. Thank you so much for attending this session. Any doubts, further doubts, I'll be able to handle them in the next session. Thank you so much. Bye.